Welcome back to the Anatomy of a King. Black man, let me talk to you for a second. And no, not the version of you the world tries to sculpt. Not the version of you your trauma tries to protect. Not that version your environment tries to limit. I'm talking to the real you. The one underneath the noise. The one underneath the expectations. The one underneath the pressure. Because today, I want to talk about something the world is terrified of discovering. Your sovereignty. Your program. Your definition of manhood. See, the world has always tried to manipulate us into who they want us to be. Aggressive when they need labor. Silent when they need compliance. Entertaining when they need a distraction. And disposable when they need a scapegoat. But a real man, a real king, doesn't move on command. He moves on principle. And that's what this episode is about. Real men set their own program. Real men move with consideration. Real men define themselves. Welcome to the Anatomy of a King. In this episode, we're going to look at how real men set their own program. Remember, what you don't change, you choose. And this change, can't afford excuses. Let's unpack that. The world profits when you don't know who you are. There's a machine, a system, designed to shape you before you ever shape yourself. And it starts real early. Before you know your name, before you know your worth, before you know your power, you're told what a man is supposed to be. You don't feel, you don't cry, you don't ask for help, you don't show weakness. I say these things a lot because this was how it was pounded in our heads. Don't question the script, don't challenge the system, don't define yourself. And the moment you try to step outside that box, the very box that people who don't want to be boxed in place you in, you're labeled difficult, dangerous, emotional, unstable, or even ungrateful. But here's the truth. A man who cannot define himself will always be defined by someone else. And that's the trap. If they can define you, they can control you. If they can control you, they can use you. If they can use you, they can discard you. This is why so many of us feel lost. Not because we're weak, but because we were never given permission to be whole. Not all of us. But kings don't wait for permission. And the ones that were never given permission to be whole, they took that. I took that. Because kings don't wait for validation. And I'm going to say it again. Kings don't wait for validation. Because kings don't wait for the world to clap before they stand tall. I've told people, many men, this. A king sets his own program. Let me ask you something. As a man, whose program are you running? Is it your father's? Your traumas? Let me guess. Your environments? Is it your exes? Some insecurities, fears, culture? I'm only asking because if you don't know, you're not running your life. Your life is running you. See, a man without a program is a man without direction. Let's break this down. A program is not a schedule. It is not a to-do list. It's not a hustle plan. A program is your internal operating system, your values, your code, your non-negotiables, your moral compass, your standards, identity, your mission. A king's program answers 3 questions. Who am I? What do I stand on? And what am I building? Who am I? That question is not answered by who they told you to be. Not who you had to be to survive. Or who you had to pretend to be to fit in. But who you are at your core. Then what do you stand on? I often say that if it makes my moral compass spin, I remove myself from the situation entirely. I don't have time for it. That's a standard. It's set. It doesn't go nowhere. It's rock solid. It doesn't waver. What are your principles? Your honor, the discipline, truth, responsibility, legacy. What do you stand on? And you got to give me something more than business. And the third thing, what are you building? Because a man without a mission becomes a man with distractions. Let me say that again. A man without a mission becomes a man with distractions. That's why so many men feel pulled in 1,000 directions. That's why so many feel drained, confused, and overwhelmed. That's why so many chase validation instead of purpose. When you don't have a program, you become programmable. And if you look, that's what's happening. But when you do have a program, your life becomes aligned. Your decisions become intentional. Your relationships become healthier. Your boundaries become clear and your purpose becomes louder. A king with a program is dangerous. Not to people, but to the system that relies on your confusion. See, strength without responsibility is chaos. Let's talk about something that I feel gets twisted in modern culture. Consideration is not weakness. Compassion is not softness. And responsibility has nothing to do with control. A real man moves with consideration when it comes to women and children. Not because he's controlled, but because he's grounded. A king understands. His presence impacts the room. His decisions impact the home. His discipline impacts the future. His emotional stability impacts everyone connected to him. A man who cannot regulate himself cannot lead anyone else. And let's be real. A lot of men were never taught emotional regulation. We were taught emotional suppression. But suppressed emotions don't disappear. They leak. They leak right into your relationships, on into fatherhood, and it grows like a virus. And it leaks into conflicts and makes it bigger, and silence is even more lonely. Then it leaks into anger, and anger leaks into self-destruction. See, a king doesn't run from his emotions. He masters them. He channels them. He studies them. He uses them for fuel, not fire. And see, when a man is emotionally grounded, he becomes a safe place for the people he loves. Women feel it. Children feel it. Communities see it. That's why consideration is not optional. It's foundational. Now, even though I do have this major consideration for women, this major love for women, especially my sisters, I have to address things with y'all. And again, this is correction, not criticism. I want to make this a standard. Only a real man can define what a real man is. So if you want the definition, go find one. There are real men around that are telling you what a real man is. And more real men need to come out and say that what is being passed out and passed around as the pamphlet for being a real man is false advertising. See, because this is the part the world fears the most. Because once a man defines himself, he becomes uncontrollable. Let me say this real clear. Only a real man can define what a real man is. Not society, not Beyonce's intranet, not culture, not your trauma, not their stereotypes, not all of y'all's expectations And no amount of pressure that you apply black man, we define us. And that definition must come from self-awareness, self-discipline, self-respect, self-governance, self-honesty, and self-accountability. Strong on self. OD on self. I need another dose of self. We define who we are. A king is not a title. This is responsibility. The same responsibility that have crushed men, and made men run. But we have a responsibility to ourselves first, gentlemen. Because if you don't lead yourself, you can't lead anything. Let me give you a truth most men never hear. You are allowed to redefine yourself at any moment. You are not locked into who you were. You are not trapped by your past, limited by your mistakes. And you are definitely not defined by your lowest moment. It seems like everybody else in the world can. But we can too. What I mean is, a king can evolve. That's what a king does. A king grows. A king upgrades his program. He updates his identity. And he expands his capacity. And every time you redefine yourself, you reclaim your sovereignty. Look, you are not who the world says you are. You are who you decide to be. Set your program. Stand on your principles. Move with consideration. Lead with intention. Define yourself. Build your legacy. Because at the end of the day, what you don't change, you choose. And this change can't afford excuses. This is the Anatomy of a King. In this episode, we unpack that. Real men set their own programs. Until next time, stand tall, move with purpose, and remember, the crown is not given. The crown is claimed. King me. See y'all next time. Thank you.